college.
Okay.
If you think about it this way, 70% of our students come here requiring developmental education. Students requiring to have ed math, to have ed English do not do well in online courses.
Okay.
We're focused right now, particularly within our online courses, on improving the quality and improving the success of the students enrolled in that course, because that helps us achieve our primary goal of student success in completing degrees and certificates.
I think, to your point, I think the biggest increase recently has been in the blended area. And I think part of that, we do see that in my area as where a lot of folks are entering that sooner, because that's a little less of a jump than a true online course, where it's a lot, first of all, it's a lot more work to start that in terms of all the development, but it's also more of a change in terms of student engagement, because now you have to get that student engagement through some kind of online method. And I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to try to work on improving that here in a second too. Okay? Open education resources, another big push that we're doing, which also impacts student success. We have a role in open education resources as well, a pretty large role. One of the things we're doing already is assisting faculty in locating resources. The next part then would be, once maybe they have located something, they have the ability to potentially, depending on the license of that material, modify some of those resources to be just what they are interested in using. So we would help them as well with instructional design as one of the skills that we bring to the table in terms of working with OER. And I know you guys have probably heard about OER a little bit ago. One of my colleagues was here talking about OER. And then one of the big things that has come up, especially recently as people start to get into looking at using open education resources, well, where are these resources actually going to be housed, in terms of how does a student gain access to those resources, and how do we allow those same resources to be shared beyond what we're using them for here at CLC, because that's a big part of OER. And so what we're investigating is letting our OER materials be available on our Blackboard, but in a way that is public, that's not behind the login that a student would normally do for Blackboard, but is in an open area where they can still access those resources at any point, or anyone in public could access those resources as well. That's still sort of being developed as we continue down the road to more OER, more open education resources, but that's where we're looking right now as probably the best place where students are already there, and so they can get to those resources easily, which is another thing that we're looking for. I mean, these are obviously the resources in their digital format. Some of these resources will be made available via the bookstore for a very nominal fee as well. And then a big key for faculty when they look at open education resources is things like support materials. Those publishers would often include test banks, they would include problem sets, interactive exercises. One of our roles in educational technology is to try and help match some of those, if possible, some of those type of materials that they would normally get with a publisher book that might be very expensive for our students, but try to help them develop some of those materials where they can then use them, still have them, but not have that large expense that comes with a major publisher book. And obviously we might not be able to match immediately the level that some of those publishers can offer a faculty member, but we can certainly get them started and have those materials available, and then make those materials open to pass on to someone else as well.
Had a meeting, it was last week or the week before, with the chief academic officers across the college, across the state of Illinois. There are very few institutions who are doing anything within OER. I don't know what Triton is, but there are very few colleges who are making investments here. And I think it's an important part of what we're doing here. So.
And then we also, and I wanted to make this clear as well, there's already a lot of great uses of technology that are happening with our faculty already. the language lab, the math lab. We have a lot of, a ton of students that utilize our math lab. We have faculty that are using resources like Khan Academy, which are great. We have, you know, many that are using some of the resources that are already on YouTube, including creating their own YouTube videos and sharing those. And I have one from Shyam Kurup, if I didn't mess up his name, one of our math instructors, and this is from a computer science course that he did, so you can just get a little flavor of
In
that.
this video, I would like to demonstrate the use of comments in our code. Comments are something that are purely for programmers. It is not for Java or for the computer to look at. So comments are just purely text. We can type whatever we want inside of a comment, and Java will ignore it. So there are two kinds of comments.
So just a quick flavor of this, but this is something that he actually did with some of the lecture capture technology that that we've had around for quite a while now, and shared it onto YouTube. Now this particular video he doesn't share publicly on YouTube, but utilizes YouTube as an easy way to get that video to the students. And he's certainly not alone in doing that. We have a media server as well where faculty can load their presentations, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but his just happens to be there. Continuing with some of the current things we're doing, this was one of the recent projects that my area has completed and is pretty proud of early on here. We created our first massively open online course, and what we did was ours is called Are You Ready for Online Learning? And what happened is we developed this in the fall of 2014 and released it in the spring of 2014. And we looked around when we were developing this, and we found that most MOOCs that were related to this topic were actually for the faculty perspective in terms of how to teach online as a faculty member. So we were kind of excited that we were doing something that was looked like at least a little bit different out there, and also serving a need that we had here in terms of trying to give students more information about what it's going to take for them to be successful in an online course. On top of that, we did keep this, it was going to be open to the world, so there isn't much of it that's CLC specific. We wanted to keep it very general because it was targeted at not just our students. I mean, that was our first goal, obviously, but it's open and it's general enough that anyone could utilize this information. And as you see, we've got almost 300 folks, 300 students enrolled, but it's interesting because we've got people enrolling from all different parts of the world. So that was exciting. And the UK was 5 different students as well.
How did they locate that course?
The course itself is built on Blackboard's OpenCourseWare platform, and that's how they locate it. So they can come there, and we're among the catalog of institutions offering courses, and they see ours, and that's how they can find it. But then obviously from our perspective, we send email invitations to all of our online students. This summer semester, I sent it to about 3,000 potential online students. And so we're working on increasing those numbers. The course itself is self-paced, which helps us as well because we don't have to necessarily be working with it every day, but the students can still get in and get to those resources. And right now we've had over 1,200 posts in the discussion board of that course, which kind of shows that activity by students. And then the last thing is the completion rates. And this is true of not just our MOOC, but most massively open online courses, and this is one of the challenges of this type of open education, is that many people sign up and very few complete. And so we've found that as well. Not that that's necessarily a negative, but it's one of the current realities of how these courses are working. But I'll talk a little bit more about maybe some potential future plans for MOOCs at College of Lake County and some ideas we have about that.
One quick thing, Scott. One of the things when I talked to Scott about developing this MOOC is we wanted to understand the technology because MOOCs can become very large. You can get thousands of people to enroll. So we wanted to understand the technology. I also wanted to develop something that we already needed. I didn't want to develop a MOOC for just the sake of developing a MOOC, because everybody wants to have a MOOC. But this is something that we absolutely needed. It allowed us to test the technology. And the next thing, we all need one. The next thing, and Scott's going to talk about this, are other potential uses of MOOCs. So go ahead, Scott.
And it is interesting, one last thing too, in talking about needing this, when we were developing this and some of our own staff heard about this, they actually called, and I had a staff member call me and say, well, my son really needs this. He's going to Iowa State and he's taking his first online course and he has no idea what to expect. And so I do believe he actually enrolled and looked at this material.
Is there a credit for that MOOC?
No, not at this time.
So, to your point, as far as the 297 enrolled,
Yes.
did you learn anything about the limitations of the technology?
A little bit. I think one of the bigger challenges was less of the technology and more of how to create it in that self-paced way so that we didn't have to necessarily be there every day or every other day to, keep the content moving for those participants, for those students.
So you could have 20,000, and it would not pose a problem with the technology.
Well, no, and part of the reason why that is because we're on that Blackboard open courseware platform, because they actually volunteer to handle that if we do become that successful with our MOOC. That's one of the reasons it's not on our own college learning management system, and also because everyone on our learning management system usually has to authenticate. They need to log in.
Okay.
We wanted this to be something where it was wide open. The other advantage to that too is a lot of times we're pushing this towards folks that either just registered or maybe they haven't even registered for an online course. We want them to be able to get to this material so they can figure out what they might be in for.
So your second point says email invitations to all
Yes.
enrolled online students. Does it make sense to send them to all students with College Lake County? Does that make sense? Or?
That was brought up, and I think that is probably worth looking into a little more as well. I think we did that because we were specifically trying to target those folks that we knew were going to need that information, and we wanted to make sure they knew it was there. And I would get a lot of feedback from those emails that I would send, and they would say, thank you so much, it was very nice to be able to see something ahead of time, and it also really felt like it gave them a point of how do I get started. A lot of times we'll get, especially community college students, when maybe it's their first online course, and they really don't even, we tell them how to get started, we tell them in multiple places, right, and we feel like, well, they should know, and a lot of times, people don't read that, or they miss that, or so this was one of those kind of personalized points where it actually helped them to say, oh, okay, I can go, I can see this, and now I've got an idea of what I need to do to start.
So I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And I love marketing. So I'm just thinking that if everyone in Lake County received that email, could that be beneficial to College of Lake County?
I don't see why not. I mean, and once again, that's one of the advantages of having it in this format, that you have that potential.
Is there any revenue associated with that?
In terms of back to us, at this point, no, but I think you could consider that in the future. I know I've certainly read articles about institutions that are looking for ways to monetize this. I think there's some challenges there.
And if you go, I think it's your next slide.
Yes,
If you
sir.
go, you'll start to see some other, I'm sorry.
Coming up though,
It's
coming up, sorry.
You'll start to see some models in which.
We're foreshadowing.
We're foreshadowing a little bit. Some of the models in which maybe we are able to monetize this, and the public relations and kind of the outreach pieces is
So just be
incorporated.
patient, Linda, is what you're saying.
We are just thinking.
We're gonna pay it off. We're gonna pay it off, I promise.
So if there are 297 enrolled,
Yes, sir.
does that mean like 18 or 19 of them are completed?
No, I believe the last time I looked, the completion was about 85, short of 100.
So we blew them away then, huh?
Well, it was better than I anticipated. And actually,
Probably because